Hi, I'm Mr. eTutor, your mystery tutor, here at mysterytutor.com, and welcome to video module 4-2. In this module, we'll start off our discussion of the reading comprehension questions on the SAT by thinking about the reading comprehension questions from the College Board's perspective. As we've discussed before, whenever we get ready to attack a new question type, it's always smart to start out by thinking of what the College Board had in mind when it put the questions together. One of the major problems with answering reading comprehension questions for most students is the multiple choice nature of the answers. In your English classes in high school and in college, you're encouraged to treat reading as a very subjective, almost artistic kind of activity. The idea of reducing reading, which seems to us like it should be subjective and interpretive, to something as simple and mechanical as multiple choice seems a little bit strange. Think how difficult it would be to take some of the things that you've read for a high school English class and turn those discussions into multiple choice questions. For example, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to include Hamlet's to be or not to be speech on the test, and then ask a multiple choice question like, which of the following 5 words best describes Hamlet's emotional state during this monologue? The reason we can't ask a question like that is because nobody knows what the answer is. The whole point of Hamlet is that we're trying to interpret how Hamlet feels about his situation and trying to unravel the mysteries that Shakespeare included in his play. So, the question we have to ask ourselves is, if you're the College Board, how do you go about creating a multiple choice test that rewards the skills that students are taught to use in high school English class? The simple answer is you can't do it. In high school, you're taught that every reader can come up with his own interpretation of every text. There's no way to take all of that and boil it down into one answer choice that everyone will always agree on when it comes to a multiple choice test like the SAT. Let that sink in for a minute. The way that you are taught to read things in high school English class cannot possibly be used as the basis for a reliable multiple choice test. We've already discussed in earlier modules how important it is to the College Board that every single question be completely bulletproof so that the entire test can be extremely reliable and very consistent. If the SAT's results were ever to stop being reliable and consistent, or if the questions ever became anything besides absolutely perfect and beyond argumentation, again, the data that the College Board generates with the SAT would stop being reliable, colleges would stop using the SAT, and the College Board would no longer exist. So the College Board is very careful to make sure that every single reading comprehension question on the SAT is beyond any sort of dispute, beyond any sort of interpretation, and requires no subjectivity whatsoever to answer. Now, all of that probably makes sense if you sit down and think about it for a few minutes, but again, almost nobody who takes the SAT sits down and thinks about what the College Board is actually trying to accomplish. So, if you're in the College Board's position, and you have to come up with a multiple choice reading test, and you've already realized you can't possibly make the questions or answers subjective or interpretive, you only have one option left. The only way to make a bulletproof multiple choice reading comprehension question is to make the correct answer to the question say exactly what the passage says, almost word for word. Think about that. If you're the College Board, and you make all of your correct answer choices say exactly what the passage says, no one can possibly argue with you about whether your interpretation is correct, because you're not interpreting anything. You're making the correct answer say exactly what the text said, and no one can possibly argue with that. So that seems like a good solution to the problem of subjectivity on multiple choice tests. But, again, fixing that one problem for the College Board potentially creates another problem. If you're the College Board, and you're going to give every single SAT taker, this is millions of people every year, you're going to give all of these people multiple choice reading comprehension questions in which the correct answer says exactly what the passage says, you're going to run into some problems pretty quickly. The people taking the SAT tend to be fairly intelligent, and they'll pick up right away on the fact that your correct answer choices say exactly what your passage says, unless you come up with some drastic measures to keep them from realizing this. So the College Board combats the problem that its answer choices are extremely obvious by giving you wrong answer choices that are designed to look extremely attractive to a person who is trained to read in the way that you learned to read in high school English class. Remember, the wrong answer choices on an SAT multiple choice question are every bit as standardized and every bit as tightly controlled as every other aspect of the test. So, our approach to reading comprehension on the SAT is not going to focus on teaching you things like tone and motif and symbols, teaching you to take notes, teaching you to underline, none of that. Our method will be based simply on understanding what attributes always accompany every correct answer choice, and, even more importantly, what attributes are likely to accompany the incorrect answer choices to every question. We've already discussed the fact that the key skill for doing well on a multiple choice test has nothing to do with actually knowing the answer, and everything to do with being able to separate the one right answer out from the 4 wrong answers. So when it comes to reading comprehension, again, we'll do that by identifying all of the things that consistently appear in the right answer choices and all of the things that consistently appear in the incorrect answer choices. Once you know how to look for these things, you will find these questions extremely obvious. So, what's the bottom line? If you want to do well on reading comprehension questions on the SAT, you have to discard everything you've learned in high school English class about how to analyze a text. Instead, you're going to have to replace all of that with targeted advice about specific patterns in the SAT answer choices. You simply cannot treat reading comprehension on the SAT the same way you would treat it in school. Now, if you're working on an A in AP English, but you're still scoring a 580 on the reading comprehension part of the SAT, now you know why. Keep watching for more on exactly how to take these questions apart, and remember, it's easier than you think.